Long before the pyramids of Egypt were built, or Homer sang of Troy, a powerful king ruled over a city called Uruk, in the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. That king's name was Gilgamesh, and his story is the oldest surviving epic in world literature. Carved on clay tablets in cuneiform script over 4,000 years ago, the Epic of Gilgamesh tells the tale of a man who was part god, part mortal, and who dared to defy fate, the gods, and death itself. Let us journey through this timeless legend, full of monsters, gods, friendship, grief, and the eternal quest for meaning. Born in the Sumerian city of Uruk, sometime in the late 4th millennium BCE, Gilgamesh was said to be 2/3 divine and 1/3 mortal, the prodigious offspring of the wild bull god king Lugalbanda and the wise cow goddess Ninsun. From childhood he towered over his peers, his muscles unyielding like copper, and his mind restless with the curiosity of both God and man. Tutors could not tame his boundless energy. He wrestled lions outside the city gates, raced the swift Euphrates currents, and learned the rites of kingship in Uruk's white-templed Iana precinct, where priests read omens in sacrificial smoke. Yet his divine vigor bred arrogance. By the time he took the throne as a young man, he compelled youths into endless labor on Uruk's monumental walls and claimed maidens on their wedding nights, believing no mortal law could bind him. The elders lamented that their brilliant king, meant to be shepherd of his people, had become their greatest trial, setting the stage for the gods to fashion a counterpart, Enkidu, who would temper Gilgamesh's reckless early reign and redirect his titanic strength toward the pursuit of wisdom and lasting glory. Ascending from precocious prince to sovereign, Gilgamesh cemented his power through feats that blurred the line between human ambition and divine mandate. Upon his father Lugalbanda's mysterious disappearance, the young demigod strode into Uruk's assembly hall, bronze skin still flecked with dust from wrestling contests at the city gates, and seized the royal scepter before the elders could agree on a regency. Declaring that the gods had already inscribed his name upon the tablets of destiny, he ordered the reforging of Uruk's dilapidated walls, pressing every able youth into labor, a show of might meant to awe rivals in Kish and Lagash. He tamed the sacred lions that prowled the steppe and yoked them to his war chariot, parading through the avenues flanked by musicians who proclaimed his lineage in thunderous hymns. With priest astronomers, he recalibrated festival calendars to honor his divine mother, Ninsun, binding temple and palace in mutual obligation, while dispatching emissaries upriver to levy tribute in timber and copper. Each act, whether pious, political, or brutal, wove fear and reverence into a single garment of authority, until the very bricks of Uruk seemed to echo his name. Yet beneath the triumphant pageantry, murmurs of resentment festered among the labor-weary citizens, foreshadowing the trials the gods would soon send to temper their unstoppable king. When the gods could no longer endure Gilgamesh's unchecked tyranny, they shaped a wild equal Enkidu from clay and desert wind, hair like matted barley, limbs sinewed with untamed strength, so that the king of Uruk might meet a force mirroring his own. After the temple courtesan civilized the beast man with love and bread, Enkidu marched into Uruk and blocked Gilgamesh's path to a bridal chamber, the two giants locking in a thunderous grapple that cracked the palace doorposts. Neither could throw the other, and when their sweat-slick arms finally slackened, laughter burst from their bruised lips. Each had at last found a brother worthy of his heart, fired by the restless need to carve their names beyond the dust of ordinary kings. Gilgamesh and his newfound brother-in-arms, Enkidu, set their sights on the cedar forest, that sacred sun-dappled realm where the air itself was said to whisper the secrets of the gods, and where Humbaba, Enlil's dread guardian, prowled like a living mountain of sinew and flame. Armed with axes whose blades flashed like newborn moons, and gigantic 7-ply shields forged in Uruk's roaring furnaces. The pair rallied the city's blessings and marched out beneath omens of crackling lightning. For 6 arduous days, they crossed scorching plains and clawed up ridges veiled in juniper mist, pausing only to pour libations to Shamash, who sent encouraging dreams that fluttered like moths around their campfires. At the forest's shadow-laced threshold, the cedars rose so tall their crowns tangled with the stars, and the heroes' hearts trembled, yet they pressed on, hacking a path until the earth shook and Humbaba erupted from the gloom, his 7 terrifying auras swirling like storm banners. The battle was a clash of epochs. Enkidu parried the demon's talon-wide claws, while Gilgamesh's axe hewed at Livingstone, and when their strength faltered, Shamash loosed scorching winds that pinned the monster in place. Hearing Humbaba's pleas for mercy, Gilgamesh hesitated, but Enkidu, wary of divine retribution should the demon survive, urged the fatal stroke. With one final roar that rattled the cedar trunks, Humbaba's head thudded to the forest floor, its eyes still glowing with captured dawn. The heroes stripped the forest of its tallest trees for Uruk's gates, binding their fates ever tighter to the gods whose realm they had violated, and setting in motion the divine reckoning that would soon claim Enkidu's life and send Gilgamesh spiraling toward the mysteries of death and immortality. When Gilgamesh and Enkidu returned to Uruk triumphant, Humbaba's head swinging from their chariot and cedar trunks stacked like trophies, Ishtar, goddess of love and war, fixed her blazing gaze upon the king. She offered him a throne beside her in the heavens, promising reins of lapis, lazuli, and harnessed war horses snorting fire. But Gilgamesh, recalling the fates of Ishtar's discarded lovers, spurned her with scathing words. He would not become the next broken shepherd, lion, or gardener left to weep in her wake. Humiliated before the gods, Ishtar ascended to Anu's celestial court and demanded vengeance. At her behest, the bull of heaven thundered down, its hooves cracking the plain, its breath opening sinkholes that swallowed 100 young men. Shoulder to shoulder, Gilgamesh and Enkidu hamstrung the divine beast and offered its heart to Shamash, an act that turned Ishtar's wounded pride into unquenchable wrath. The gods met in council, weighing the heroes' repeated trespasses, the felling of sacred cedars, the slaying of Humbaba, the insult to Ishtar, the butchery of the bull. Someone must pay. They decreed that Enkidu, the one fashioned from clay, would return to dust. A wasting fever gripped him. For 12 agonizing days, he lay in Gilgamesh's arms, cursing the trapper who first spied him and the courtesan who lured him from the wild. Yet as the final shadows gathered, he blessed Gilgamesh for their brotherhood and slipped into the long house of clay where kings and slaves sit side by side, crowned in darkness. Gilgamesh tore his hair, roamed the steppe clad in a lion's skin, and let his royal beard grow ragged. The mighty walls of Uruk felt suddenly small beside the yawning gulf of death. Refusing to accept the mortal doom that claimed his friend, Gilgamesh set out across the world's edges in search of Utnapishtim, the one human granted eternal life. He crossed scorching deserts where the scorpion men guard the twin peaks of Mashu, sprinted through 12 leagues of utter night, and reached the jeweled garden of the gods, where gemstones hung like fruit. At the cosmic sea, he persuaded the boatman Urshanabi to ferry him over the waters of death, using punting poles hewn from trees that must never touch human skin, until at last he stood before the immortal couple on Dilmun's distant shore. There, Utnapishtim told him the secret no mortal should hear, a tale of a deluge sent by the gods to scour the noisy earth, of how Ea whispered the warning into reed walls, of how a giant cube-shaped ark saved beasts and craftsmen alike, and of how the world was reborn beneath a rainbow covenant. For his obedience, Utnapishtim had been lifted beyond the reach of time, but he warned that the gift was a singular exception, never to be repeated. Moved by Gilgamesh's anguish, Utnapishtim offered a final test. stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights, proving mastery over the lesser twin of death, sleep. Gilgamesh failed, slumping into slumber as soon as he sat. Yet compassion lingered. Utnapishtim revealed a thorny plant that grew in the abyss. The old men are young again, capable of restoring lost youth. Gilgamesh dove to pluck it and began the long journey home, dreaming of sharing the boon with Uruk's elders. But at a cool spring he paused to bathe, and a serpent, its skin dull and cracked, scented the plant, stole it, and sloughed its hide in vibrant renewal as it vanished into the reeds. Empty-handed but inwardly changed, Gilgamesh reached Uruk at dusk. He beheld the towering walls his people had built, and, in their enduring stones, recognized the only immortality granted to humankind. The legacy of deeds and the stories sung long after breath has fled. Footsore and sun-browned from his wanderings, Gilgamesh reached the western gate of Uruk at twilight, the brick ramparts glowing like burnished copper beneath the sinking sun. For the first time he paused not to boast of cedar spoils or divine conquests, but to study the masonry itself, the kiln-fired courses his own tyranny had once compelled, now standing silent and unyielding, while heroes and demons alike had come and gone. In those patient stones he read a truth no god could inscribe for him, that a king's greatness is measured less by the monsters he fells than by the shelter he leaves for generations unborn. Entering the city, he walked unannounced among market stalls, where children laughed, artisans hammered bronze, and elders recited hymns beneath fig trees. Their ordinary bustle, once beneath his notice, now struck him as the pulse of a legacy more enduring than cedar gates or royal tombs. That night, he summoned the scribes and ordered the story of his trials. Humbaba's roar, the bull's thunder, Enkidu's laughter, the serpent's stolen bloom, etched onto lapis-colored tablets and set within the temple archive, so that future hearts might learn where hubris ends and wisdom begins. Standing on the ziggurat's summit, cloak fluttering in the cool river breeze, Gilgamesh finally whispered the lesson he had crossed the world to grasp. Mortality is the loom upon which meaning is woven, and the truest immortality lies not in unending breath, but in the memory of deeds that teach the living how to be human. And so, across the span of 4 millennia, the echo of Gilgamesh's footsteps still reaches us, reminding every dreamer, scholar, and seeker that the walls we build in life are measured not in bricks alone, but in wisdom hard-won and stories faithfully kept. If this journey through ancient Uruk stirred your imagination, let its lesson travel farther. Share the tale, pass it on, and help these epic tablets live anew in modern hearts. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into humanity's oldest heroic saga, tap the like button, subscribe for more myths and histories brought vividly to life, and ring the bell so you never miss our next adventure. Until then, may your own quests lead you to truths worth carving in stone, stories that outlast the ages.